Hi, welcome to the first episode of Health Exchange Chat Room. I am thrilled and pleased that I get the opportunity to discuss a topic that is dear to my heart, health screening. Now, this episode is in memory of late Chadwick Boseman. I was so distraught, just like you were, when we learned on August 28th that a man that had impacted us so much made us believe that it's possible, whatever the color you are, particularly for the African American community, that we can rise above the stigma. He lost his life to colon cancer at such a young age of 43. I was shocked at that statistics. I mean, it's not common. Usually that's an older age. Screening even starts at 50 for that. Some organizations, some guidelines would go by 45. So how is that even possible? So this episode is in his memory. We're going to talk about the age appropriate screening, when you should do it, what you should do, and when it should end. We will speak a little bit about some of the symptoms of colon cancer. I will bring in a guest to test out and see if he let the cat out of the bag, if he is familiar with what a colon screen is. So I hope that you stay tuned while we learn together and live at our finest health. So let's start off with health maintenance. Health maintenance is required because it ensures that we're in good health. When we're in good health, then we can go about our business, go about our, lives, but we have assurance that we're in good state of health. And that is all important because that helps us live at our finest at all times. Now, let's start off with the main one, which is the colon cancer. Now, colon cancer really is recommended between 45 and 50. There are different guidelines, but really without a family history, you don't need to do it earlier. If there is a family history, please talk to your specialist, your primary care provider, your first point of care about that family history, and then they will decide how early you need to have a colonoscopy. But in terms of colonoscopy, within that age, it's really every 10 years. Now, if they find a polyp, which is just a structure in the colon lining, they can take it out. And depending on how big it is and how many polyps will determine if you're going to have the colonoscopy another 10 years or it'll be 3 to 5 years. Some of the symptoms that you will experience if there's a history of colon cancer or presence of colon cancer. It's just a lot of GI upset. They could be bloody stool. They could be unexplained weight loss. Unintentional weight loss is what we call it. And just a lot of just nausea, vomiting, depending on how extreme and what stage it's caught. So those are some of the symptoms, but we don't want to wait to end those symptoms. So once you're of age, really please ensure that your primary care writes that that referral for you to get a colonoscopy. There are other ways of screening for colon cancer, but that's the most common one. There are others that you can discuss with your primary care provider. Now, we have mammograms. Mammograms is the next one I want to discuss, and this is for women. Women get mammograms anywhere between 40 and 50. Again, if there's a family history in the first relative, you want to get that sooner than later. You definitely want to get it 10 years, the age of when that family member, first degree family member, was diagnosed. It is so important. I cannot overemphasize it, that breast cancer is very prevalent. As we know, it's one of those first two mortality rate for cancer. So we need to make sure that we're screening regularly. Now, the guidelines currently say that when you're in your 50, it's every 2 years, and I'm referring to the United States Preventative Service Task Force. Once you turn 60, then it's every year, and then you end at 75. Now, backtrack to colonoscopy, you do end at 75 as well. Now, in terms of breast cancer, Some of the findings is that there will be a lump, unexplained lump. There could be changes in the breast tissue. There could be like discharge in the nipple area. So those are some of, but not limiting to the others, but just a few to mention. Those are some of the findings. So we want to make sure that we get our mammograms. Let's not shy away from it, because again, if we know in time we can catch all these diseases and definitely implement treatment as early as possible. Another health screening that I want to speak to is a pap smear, and this again is for women. Guidelines have changed over the years, but I want you to remember today that at age 21, women need to get a pap smear, and a pap smear within that age of 21 to 30 is every 3 years. Once you're over 30, then it's every 5 years, provided there's a HPV, and the HPV is that virus that increases the risk of cervical cancer. The reason why we get a pap smear is because we want to look out for cervical cancer. There's several symptoms that a woman can have that would illustrate or kind of give you the sense that there's cervical cancer. Again, weight loss. There might be bleeding in the vagina area. There could be a family history. So all these things you want to pay attention to. Pap smears end at 65. Now, it might end sooner depending on if you've had a hysterectomy, but those are conversations you want to have with your physician just to make sure where you fit in that category. Now, there are other screenings. Let's very quickly talk about the Dexa scan. Dexa scan are very important. That's where you scan the bone structure to make sure that there's no osteoporosis. And osteoporosis is when you have thinning of the bone. Now, it's very important. I always say that this is a birthday gift at 65 to make sure that you haven't lost all the bone tissue that you need to have. And so that's when you check it at 65. You could get it done earlier depending on if you've been subjected to a number of medications. So like maybe steroids medication or thyroid medication, family history of fractures or falls, then you might get it sooner. The appropriate treatment for patients or individuals, I should say, if they're found to either have thinning of the bone or they have full bone loss. So that's the Dexa scan. The other screening. Now, unfortunately, if you're a chronic smoker, meaning that you've smoked for over 30 years, pack history, or quit within 15 years, we now have a guideline to check for lung cancer. Lung cancer is done in the way of a low density CT scan. Now, talk to your provider if you've been smoking, that you do fit the criteria between 55 to 80 to get a low density CT scan. So those are the big ones right there that you hear your doctors talk to you a lot about. There are now other dimensions here and there as evidence becomes more available. But let's change gears and talk about shots. What are those vaccines that we need to take that will make sure that we're living at our finest health? Some of them will be the flu shot, which we take during the flu season, and we have shingles, which tends to be given between 50 and above, and that's to prevent shingles. Again, those are really, really debilitating, rash and pain. So getting that at that age, especially if you've never had chickenpox, you want to make sure that you get that. Pneumonia shot, if you have asthma, if you smoke, those are things that you definitely need to make sure that you're getting. Now, we have talked about shingles, HPV, that's usually for the younger age. So the HPV, you definitely want to get the HPV. That's very important, and that's between 9 and 26. And it's recommended in between 2 to 3 doses. So I've talked about a good number, and I'll reference that in the notes so that you can reflect back on the different screening. I strongly believe that if we live at our finest health, then we can feel stronger every day to serve our community, to serve ourselves, and to serve our family. I hope that you find this helpful. Please let me know which one you're planning to get done. If you have any questions, I'm happy to respond and answer. Hi. So as I promised, I was going to find a gentleman or a gentlewoman, but in this case, I found a gentleman that will tell us his thought process about age-appropriate screening. The one in particular we're going to speak about today is colonoscopy. Now, I have here Muyiwa Babalola, aka my husband. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this.
Pleasure.
Now, happy birthday in arrears. I understand you just turned 50. You look wonderful, if I may say.
Thank you.
So tell us, what is your thought process, and what screenings are you familiar with, and which ones are you planning on getting?
Well, I know there is a plethora of screenings that's recommended at various ages for various reasons. But the one that is top of mind is colonoscopy. I feel that once you're about 40 or so, that you should probably schedule it maybe every year. That's what I hear. So that's one of the ones that is top of mind for me right now.
Okay, well, so we have it. This is information that my husband is, availed himself of. So if 40 is the age, then how come you haven't had one all this while?
Well, colonoscopy is one of those tests that one is painful, and two, it almost feels like it's an invasion of privacy, and three, it's very intrusive at the same time. So for that reason, most men feel very uncomfortable, including me, feel very uncomfortable actually scheduling the colonoscopy. And even if and when it's scheduled, they don't take it. It's just one of those tests they just skip.
Wow, so now you're letting us know that not only did you think it was at 40, but there was a reason why you haven't had it this whole time. Well, thanks for sharing that. And so that we can dispel rather, the myth that is out there about colonoscopy. As I mentioned, the United States Preventative Service Task Force actually recommends between 45 and 50. 40 has really never been a recommendation, but that might be in the works right now with the new, the evidence of younger people getting colon cancer much, much earlier. Now, in terms of it being painful, it is not painful. It really isn't. It's not painful because you're actually put to sleep during that period, so you don't know what's going on. The most uncomfortable part of getting a colonoscopy is where you're going to get a golightly. So it's like a whole gallon that you have to drink, and that's just to clean out your system. So look at it as all these years of eating, all sorts of things might have formed in your GI tract, and you have to make sure you clean that out so that when they put the scope, a long scope, in the anal region while you're sleeping, they can clearly see what's going on. Yeah, so I don't know if you have a better understanding now of what is done, and maybe that makes you feel a little bit more at ease with getting a colonoscopy.
Yeah, I think it makes me feel much better.
Okay, all right.
Now,
At least it's not painful, right?
correct, that it's not as
Okay,
painful
okay.
as I probably thought it was.
Okay, now how often should you be getting a colonoscopy? Any knowledge about that? Any insight?
From my little understanding, maybe every year.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
All right, well, let's do a further debunking of that myth. It's not every year. You do not get a colonoscopy every year. It's every 10 years, actually. Every 10 years, provided they do not, the specialist does not find any polyps, in the colon tract. If there are no polyps, then it will really be every 10 years. But if they find polyps, it's 3 to 5 years, depending on the size of the polyp. But that's a conversation you need to have with your specialist to find out when you need to follow up for another colonoscopy. So in my opinion, and I don't know what you think, if it's every 10 years, provided everything is fine, then I think that is something that we should all avail ourselves of, because knowledge is power. And once you know that your GI tract is clean, it gives you some confidence and assurance that you're healthy, and you wouldn't need to get it in another 10 years. So what do you think about that?
That is very good information, because I feel that a lot of people out there actually have the incorrect information, and that is preventing them from either scheduling a test or even thinking that that's one of the things they really need to be very mindful of
Right.
Like they always say that knowledge of power.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm married to a doctor, but I didn't know most of these things. So it's a great thing that I am getting to know these things
Yes,
now.
and it's surprising for me because I didn't even know he did not know this. I thought he said every year. I was like, okay, a lot of people are not going to be happy if it's, you have to get a colonoscopy every year. Now there are procedures that you get every year, like the stool test. If you rather not get the colonoscopy, the stool tests are every year, but it's preferred that you get a colonoscopy because with the stool test, it's so what if you get a stool sample that is negative? It doesn't mean that you don't have polyps. It doesn't mean that you don't have any abnormality. So it's always best to visualize the colon to be certain. So maybe you had some information correct, but just not very clear about the procedure. So I'm really looking forward to you telling me about your experience because I believe at this point, since you're informed, you don't feel too hesitant about scheduling your colonoscopy anymore.
No, no. Right now is less unsettling
Okay.
to actually schedule the test.
Okay.
I actually look forward to it.
Okay, awesome. That was the same thing when I was recommending a colonoscopy to one of my female patients. She asked, "Doc, are you going to get a colonoscopy?" And I paused for a minute. I was like, yeah, I will when I get to that age. I most certainly will because we're really as strong as we see ourselves. And in terms of empowering ourselves and making sure that we live with our finest health, it's very important that we abide by all this health screening, all this health maintenance that we need to do. And it's a shared decision. So we do need to talk with our physicians and make sure that we're staying on top of everything that we need to get done. Well, thank you very much, Muyiwa.
Oh,
Have
thank you
fun on
so
your
much. Thank
colonoscopy.
you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Come to the part of the chat where I answer a question that was sent in from a viewer concerning their health. And this question comes from all the way from Texas, and it's in person of Toyosi Bankole. The question is, when is the most appropriate time to start getting the flu shot? Yes, that's a great question. When is the most appropriate time to start getting the flu shot? Now, the flu season really begins anywhere from October and it extends all the way to March. We always recommend that you get it as early as September. A lot of practices will have their stock coming in somewhere in September. So that's the best time to get it because you want to make sure that you're ready for the season, right? That you have all your protective gears. So there are people that wait till December or somewhere in January and they ask, is it still effective? Yes, it is, because again, as I said, the flu season extends all the way to March. Now, the sooner you get it, the better for you. Now, some, patients will say, well, I don't want to get the flu shot. I always get sick anytime I get the flu shot. I have the worst feeling. Now, I am not disagreeing that that is true to your situation, but it does not cost the flu shot. I mean, it doesn't cost the flu. It could, again, because of the way if everybody reacts differently to the flu vaccine, it just, what it does is that your body's reacting to it. But it does help to minimize the full manifestation of a flu disease in case you come across the flu, the virus itself, the influenza virus. So I take it every year and I have not experienced any complications or side effects, but I want you to ask your primary care provider, let them give you more insight to exactly what the flu does, how does it benefit you, and don't just listen to everybody's experience because everybody has a different situation, and you don't want to just gospel truth of whatever people tell because you don't know the surrounding situation. And so that's the information that I have to share today about the flu shot, when you need to get it, does it cost you to have the flu, and I really do wish that and hope that the season will be a flu-free season, especially in the midst of the pandemic that we're in right now. Thank you so much for writing in that question. I hope that I've been able to help. Yes, we made it to the very end. This is our first episode of Health Exchange Chat Room. Really excited about this chat room where we get to chat with one another as strong women wanting to live at our finest health on a daily basis. This chat room embodies everything related to health. No health related matter is off limit. So please send your questions because we have a segment of the show where we talk about those questions that you have concerning your health. Send your questions to drbabs@livingatyourfinest.com. I'll be honored to respond on our weekly Sunday episode. So please make sure you send them in and let us live together. Let's grow together. Let's live at our finest health on a daily basis. A scripture that I go over, reminisce over is the one that says, "My people perish for the lack of wisdom and the lack of knowledge." So for us, we need to be knowledgeable about our health, right? So that we can live at our finest health. So this is what this channel is for. It is for you. It is for me so that we can grow and be strong together. So please share the message, share the love. Sharing is caring, right? So share, subscribe so that you are alerted once the show has been, released. Go ahead, subscribe, hit the subscribe button, go ahead and share and leave a comment. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what tests, screening tests that you're going to do based on the recommendations. Of course, speak to your primary care provider so that they can, give you proper guidance. But thank you so much for staying tuned. Just remember until next time that you need to live at your finest. You deserve to live at your finest, and you most certainly can achieve to live at your finest. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and see you soon.